Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Shanalytics. Today I'm joined by one of my favorite people on all of the internet. In fact, I think it's my favorite person on all of 49ers media. That's EastBayChris. Chris, first off, man, you've been doing live streams this is your third live stream this week. Last week I was live streaming with you. I see you on Grant's channel at some point recently. I mean, you've been all over the place, man. What have you been up to?
This is pretty much my life now, whether I wanted it to be or not. I've sort of fallen face first into it. Grant kind of started it, and then Jesse pushed me along, Jesse Naylor, and it's not slowing down. So whether I want this to continue, it doesn't seem like it's up to me anymore. And I'm just sort of being forced into it and just sort of playing along. So I guess I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad I had you on my channel because last week, I want to say, and we were just talking about this, I don't even remember when that was, honestly, at this point, but we did a Game of Thrones comparison, which is so much fun. And things are going to be a little more, I guess, serious, I want to say today. But, well, we'll mix it up with some Niners topics. And I also have a few questions about EastBayChris I want to ask you at the end. But before I do get into everything today and all of our topics, I want to make sure everyone, if you're watching this on Twitter or YouTube, go and check me out on either one. If you're watching on YouTube, you can just check my right there, by Ben Meyerson. That's me on Twitter. If you're over on Twitter, just go over to YouTube and search my name, Ben Meyerson, and my channel should pop up right away. But first off, Chris, before I get into the first target, or topic I was going to say, let's skip to this. Let's just start with this. Let's talk about the Kyle Shanahan press conference today, Chris. I would say his second most iconic press conference this offseason. I think first place definitely has to be the I don't know who's going to be alive by Sunday press conference. But for press conferences for Kyle, I mean, this is as feisty as Kyle seems to get.
Yeah. Honestly, and going back to that original press conference that you're talking about, the one right before the draft, I personally feel that Kyle is a very hard book to read. And I know that some people were convinced that he was a little bit flustered during that when he was talking to the press. I don't know. I can't tell with him. His personality, he seems so just sort of stoic and like he doesn't want to really let us in to the Kyle Shanahan world. So they've both been very interesting press conferences, but again, I really kind of struggle to read him. But if you want to talk about the one today, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on it. Normally I try and keep things very light and humorous, but this one set me off, Ben.
Yeah. And you know what? Let me set you up, Chris, because I'm going to share this video on screen. You tweeted this out earlier. I don't want to keep the people waiting any longer for this. So let's bring this video up. This is from Kyle Shanahan, I believe, earlier this week. Or not this week, earlier today. If I can load this. Oh, well, there goes.
Whose Twitter account is that? Who's Chris Shaw?
Yeah, I don't know who that is. But let's see. Okay. Can you hear that, Chris?
I'm not hearing anything yet.
No audio?
No.
All right. Well, gosh, I hate to do. You know what? I'll do this for everybody. If you're over on YouTube, I'm just going to go and drop this link in the description because I thought that was going to work, but it was not. But
what I can do, hold on. I think I can share my screen.
Yeah, go for it.
And try this because I really want to play the audio for people. So hang with us. Just give us 1 second. Okay. Share screen. Share audio. No, it's not working for me either. I'm sorry. All right. Well, I think everyone's kind of seen it. So do you just want to kind of maybe summarize for the people who haven't?
Yeah. So and I dropped the link in the YouTube comments, so you can go and check that out if you want to on your own time. But essentially, I believe Kyle's asked, what do you think the team should be doing about injuries? You get all these injuries constantly. Last season was horrible, of course, but just in these past few weeks, we had Jeff Wilson Jr., who sat up and tore his meniscus. We had Justin School and Tarvarius Moore on Monday. And when Kyle was asked about this, he essentially just described what I described to you. He said, "Oh, with the offensive lineman Justin School, he was dropping back on a pass play and he just buckled his knee. That's just a football thing. Anything happens." Tarvarius Moore, same thing, backing up, right, tearing it or rupturing his Achilles. And then with Jeff Wilson Jr., he's like, "Oh, he just got up and stood up and made a wrong turn." These are the type of things you can't really control. You can't really do anything about this stuff. And now we do our own things to change all this stuff. But really, we're figuring it out. Like, come on. You can tell. And I was trying to keep it light there, but Kyle was BSing. He completely was in there just being like, "Oh, injuries happen. You can't really do anything about them. People get injured. That's it." I don't really understand this. It's not even a nonchalant attitude with Kyle. It's more that he doesn't care what anyone thinks about him. And I think 49ers fans have always really enjoyed that. They're like, "Oh, yeah, he's kind of like Bill Belichick, right? He doesn't ever reveal anything." But at the same time, you get press conferences like this where the guy gets asked a very legitimate, not even easy question, but a question you should be able to answer or have something to say for the fans. And Kyle just comes out and says, "Oh, yeah, these 3 guys got injured. We can't really do anything about that." Like, I don't really know what to make of that, Chris.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on here. And I think I'll start by saying that these injuries are starting to define his legacy, both him and John Lynch. When you think back about these past 4 seasons, you think about all the injury-riddled seasons, plus the 1 Super Bowl year. And reminder, even during that Super Bowl year, they dealt with a multitude of injuries, and they had to have a lot of backups come in and step up in order for them to get there. So even that season, they had the injury bug. So it's not just this one-off injury here, this freak accident. Oh yeah, Jeff Wilson, he just stepped up from a chair, and what can you do type thing. It's so consistent that they are one of the most injured teams in the league that you have to make this a priority, and you have to verbalize that you understand that this is not just a little tiny thing anymore and bad luck. And what I thought happened on Tuesday. So the timeline of events is it broke in the morning that these 2 major injuries had happened. And then shortly after that, the media was told not to come to Santa Clara. They're shutting down the practice, and they're not doing any interviews that day. My reaction to that was, oh man, okay, they understand that this is major. And kind of what we're saying right now, they're not taking it lightly. What I kind of pictured in my head and what I would have hoped for is everyone within the organization from the top down, Jed, Kyle, John, all the coaches, the training staff, they need to get in a room and hash it out right now. What can we change today that we have not been doing over the past 4 years to prevent these injuries? What is going to happen right now? So I don't know if anything like that did happen. If again, the rest of the organization.
Hey, Chris, if you ask Kyle about it, you know what his response is? He's just go and listen to Grant's question. The way he responded, how he said, "Oh, we change all kinds of things, high, low pressure. We change the types of strenuous practices that they do." But if you notice what Kyle's saying all throughout that, he doesn't mention anything specific to actually let you know that he's changing and that he's willing to change. Like, I think with Kyle and with the 49ers in general, going back even before Kyle, this injury thing, it's a systemic issue with the 49ers. It's something they cannot fix. They've been something like the 2nd most injured team in like the last 15 or 20 years or whatever. And I think just in Kyle Shanahan's time, sorry, let me make sure I'm correct with how I say this. In the past 8 seasons, going back to before they even had Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers were bottom 12 in injuries year after year after year. No team had been bottom 12 in injuries for that many years in a row ever. And if you look at the current streak of teams that are even close to that, there was one team who had it for 3 straight seasons. So this isn't just a bad problem for the 49ers. This is a problem that's crippling the franchise. And like you just explained perfectly, in the 2019 season affected them surely. But let's go back to even the post-Hoyer Shanahan era, right? The 2018 and the 2020 seasons, both defined by injuries, not even not even off the tracks from injuries. Just that's how you define those seasons, because 2 games in, you lose some of your most important players on your entire team.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I don't think we really saw Kyle acknowledging that today.
No.
Again, it was very sort of, you said he wasn't nonchalant. I felt he was very nonchalant about the whole thing. And that's what really bothered me. You know me, I like to keep it light. I like to keep it humorous. I can't be humorous when there's injuries on the field. There's nothing funny to say. So it just kills me that this stuff is going on. And I don't know if you wanted to talk about the Will Blackman interview that happened today on Eric Crocker's show as well. But I wanted to kind of summarize that, because I felt, it's obviously very relevant to this, and it was very fascinating. Will, he used to be a quarterback in the NFL. I think he played for over 10 years. And he basically said that most of these organizations, he played for 4 different teams. Most of these organizations in the NFL, they have everything in place for the players to succeed, for them to maintain the health and maintain their bodies to the NFL level. So that includes like having nutritionists, all the different food options you can imagine, all the different training staff that'll help you. But there's a catch. You have to be the one motivated enough to seek out these people and really push yourself and educate yourself into how do I best prepare myself for a long career in the NFL? And I think one of the pitfalls a lot of these young guys fall into is that they have this mentality, well, I just got to lift as many weights as possible. I got to push my body to the limits, and I just got to get it to a state where I'm more physical, more bigger than the guy I'm competing against. But what you need is a balance. You need a balance of rest. You need a balance, again, good nutrition, good diet. And again, being young, selling that mentality to them is a difficult thing. You need a coach and a coaching staff in place who can implement that mentality to your team as well, so that they understand not to just kill themselves day in and day out, year round, but also just be smart about it and find those days to rest your body as well.
Yeah, and I think the main thing you hit on there is, like you're saying, guys are getting big and strong, right? But then in the same way, they're not focusing as much on their recovery. And because they don't focus on their recovery, you see so many of these non-contact injuries, all these different types of knee stuff that we quite frankly just didn't even see 10, 15, 20 years ago at the rate that we're seeing it now. You can see the explosion and the torn ACLs, the meniscuses, all these kind of Achilles, all these injuries that happen because these guys are so big and fast and strong, that it's making it so tough on these guys' bodies, that they're truly, they're pushing the limits of what it means to be human. But in the same way, because you're doing that, you're putting so much stress on your body to maintain that. And when you don't keep up with the recovery the way you need to, your body just can't keep up.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it was very fascinating to kind of get that insight, because we could speculate until we're blue in the face on what's actually happening here. But really sort of narrowing it down to putting responsibility on someone within the organization to figure it out. And I know, a lot of people have been pointing at Kyle. I think it's all the guys at the top. I think they need to come together, strategize on this, and not just brush it off anymore as just dumb luck. You can't do that anymore. It's too consistent. Figure it out. Do something.
Yeah, and even if it's a matter of dumb luck, the 49ers are the unluckiest team in the NFL by far. That's the thing where where I get really thrown off, because you see teams have bad injury luck. I mean, that happens in the NFL. It's a physical contact sport. But in the same way, when you get so consistently hurt and you don't change your process, or you don't change your practice, or however you're training, expecting, having different expectations for the injuries, that's idiotic. It's stupid to me to think that, oh, we'll just keep doing things the way we normally do things and it will get figured out eventually. No, you need to be proactive about these type of issues so that you can fix it. And
Right.
The tough part, I guess, for me, is that they did make a big change in 2018. They changed they did an overhaul in their training staff. They hired a brand new, training staff just at the top too. So they've tried to make and implement changes. So to me, like you're saying, this has to not just go to the Kyle Shanahans of the world. It has to go to the John Lynch, Jed York. They all have to be worried about this issue right now for the 49ers, because if they want to ever win a Super Bowl again, man, how are you going to be able to survive with all those kinds of injuries consistently the way the 49ers have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, I noticed, someone in the comments said that they had to change process. And like you were saying, they changed the training staff. It is an iterative process as well. You have to constantly be looking at what you're doing, having those discussions and making those changes. And again, I hope that they're doing that, but just, we're talking about Kyle Shanahan's press conference today. I just didn't feel that the sense of urgency was there, at least in what he was communicating to us, and he really understands that.
No, and I think you either have to take it one of two ways. Take it at face value for what Kyle's saying, which is honestly what most people should do. Or you take the optimistic route and say, hey, Kyle's doing this all on purpose. He's a mastermind, right? He's deceiving everyone, and he's making, all these 49ers fans double guess, second guess themselves. So that I don't buy that, because to me, Kyle doesn't seem like that type of multi-faceted planner who's going to go out and specifically drop things in press conferences. To me, when I said Kyle didn't have a nonchalant attitude, I think what I meant by that more than anything is that Kyle, that's not Kyle being nonchalant. That's just Kyle being Kyle. He just doesn't care. I think that's just his general attitude all the time, right? So maybe we just have to get used to that more. But man, I think it has to be something that needs to be addressed no matter what. I mean, you can't just go on with ignoring an issue like that, especially when it's going to cripple your Super Bowl team. I mean, we've seen it happen in the last 3 years with the 49ers.
Yeah. I don't know. I get a little more emotional about this because, like I said, I mean, it's been happening for so long. I don't know. Again, you want me to give solutions? I don't have the solution. I'm not in the building, so I don't know exactly what's happening. I just want them to fix the damn thing now, so we can, see a somewhat relatively healthy team play a full season. We haven't really seen that at all. So
no, we haven't seen that from the Niners, and that's the disappointing part, because people always talk about the potential of this team, but it never seems realized. And if you're a 49ers fan, if you're like a really true 49ers fan, you understand why. I think there's a national perspective, especially around this version of the 49ers, that, oh, they can be so much better. But the same light, you have to be better. You can't expect to be better. So yeah. That's where I want to end that, because we could do an entire hour on that. I do want to move on to this though. So the 49ers were heavily rumored for Julio Jones, and they've been heavily rumored for a lot of these type of big name players in the past. Every single offseason, when there's an opportunity to throw the 49ers in one of these trade rumors, they're in it. So, my question to you is, why do you think the 49ers always miss out on these, big trade targets, right? Your Julio Jones of the world. A few years ago, it was Jalen Ramsey. Last year, it was Jamal Adams. Why aren't they landing these guys?
So I don't think that they're necessarily missing out on these players. And the reason I say that is they have acquired Trent Williams, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Emmanuel Sanders, all three players at the time who were big names, and people were really excited about them. I think it's more a case of where the 49ers, they seem to inquire about every single player that becomes available in trade. It's kind of nuts how often they're tied to players. We're not used to it because we never seem to get these reports in the past with the previous regime. But I think that's what it is. They inquire, they sort of assess what teams are asking for, what they want in trade, and they'll pull the trigger only if they feel like it's in their best interest to do so. The case of Julio Jones, the assets that were given up, they're so light on draft picks right now. I don't see them doing that and committing, he's got like 3 years on his contract and that hefty price tag. So in that case, it didn't make a lot of sense. The trade the Seahawks made last year for Adams, 2 first-round picks. I mean, wow, yeah, that's kind of rough. And he didn't even play the full season last year, and he was questionable in coverage too. So we'll see on that.
And that's the other thing too. We mentioned all these players I brought up. I think the only player looking back on it, that I would be truly disappointed the 49ers didn't try and spend more draft capital on is a guy like a Jalen Ramsey, who's a guy they kind of would desperately. I mean, if they had Jalen Ramsey right now, that is an elite of the elite type of defenses. So to me, that's one of the only moves where I actually go back retroactively and I'm like, oh, the 49ers could have made that move. That would have been really smart for their team. But at the same time, it's 2 first-round picks, and maybe you don't get to spend those picks when you're trying to go and get a Trey Lance, right? So, and I think the reason I brought up this topic, and I think this is interesting, is that I think John Lynch is very good at making it seem like the 49ers are interested in all these guys, right? He makes the inquiry. He made the call for Aaron Rodgers. He does all this type of stuff, right? But in reality, the 49ers are really bargain hunting all the time. If you look at all the trades they've actually made, right, besides the Trey Lance trade, the Trent Richardson trade, Emmanuel Sanders, D4, Jimmy Garoppolo even, they didn't trade 1 first-round pick for any of those players. They're all second, third-round picks, which would eventually, for a guy like Emmanuel Sanders, turn into a compensatory pick that the team would get back. So to me, it doesn't seem like John Lynch is really willing to take any risks at all when it comes to trading for these type of players. Has to be a guy to where if it doesn't work out for the team, there's a good reason, right?
Yeah, and it does make you wonder why they didn't get Hopkins last year, because that was such a terrible trade for the Texans. They couldn't have swooped in and offered something a little bit better. Not sure what happened there. I will say what's interesting about the trades that they have made as well is that they've all been surprises. I don't think there's been any connection with the 49ers and these players prior to the trades actually happening. So I've gotten to the point where when there are rumors that bubble to the surface, 49ers are talking to so-and-so, I just assume it's not going to happen, because that's been the consistent pattern over the past 4 years. So
I mean, for 49ers fans before the 2019 season, it was Odell Beckham Jr., right? Everyone's so on top of him, right? And then out of nowhere, D Ford is traded to the 49ers. It's always this Jekyll and Hyde, where the 49ers on the one hand are so much in the eye of the media. People are paying so much attention to them. They get all these quote unquote links, people they talk to, people they've asked about, stuff like that. But in the long run, when the 49ers make a huge acquisition, when they decide to make a trade like that, they don't actually seem like there's anything that leaks beforehand, like you were saying, like not at all.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything to my little, thought in my head about that, but I think that has been the case. I don't think they've been connected to any of these players prior to acquiring them. So keep an eye out for that. If you hear another rumor bubble up, I would just assume that they're not going to get the person.
Well, and especially, I think the only player I even remember hearing about before the trade happened was a guy like Trent Richardson. But that was only because of all the noise around Joe Staley when we found out he was retiring. 49ers fans, if you remember correctly, it was
Trent Williams.
Yeah, when they made the trade for Trent Williams, what I'm saying is that
you said Trent Richardson.
Okay, well, thanks.
I hope not.
Not Trent Richardson, no, Trent Williams. But I remember the Monday before the draft with him, right? We heard about Joe Staley's retirement, and prior to that point, we hadn't really heard much about left tackle at all, right? Then the rumors start bubbling up. Everyone's like, "Oh, will they take one in the first round?" And then they just didn't. And everyone's like, okay, so how are you going to replace that position? Right. I think once people started connecting the dots, they're like, oh, okay, this kind of makes sense. And even with those rumors with Trent Williams, it wasn't even rumors. It was more, like I said, people just connecting the dots, understanding Kyle would prefer to have one of his guys like we've seen over and over, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually another example. I mean, this is them trading away assets, but the Buckner trade, we had no idea that was coming, and then also the picks to get Lance as well. We had no idea that was coming either. So when it comes to trades and Lynch and Shanahan, you're probably not going to hear anything about it beforehand.
No, and I think that's the thing I've learned. Like you said, if you do hear about it, it's not going to happen. It
Be
just
skeptical.
yeah, be very, very skeptical.
Although I tell Twitter, definitely get your hopes up. It'll probably happen.
Oh, Chris, for you, those rumors are excellent. I mean, you live off some of those rumors, man. I swear, sometimes I see the stuff you're tweeting, and I know you're being sarcastic about it because I know they aren't going to go and get that guy, but you can have the most fun with the Julio Jones of the world, the Antonio Browns, right? All these guys who are these like big name players who are always available for the 49ers. It's so funny. But I want to move on to this next. So I think one of the more interesting things that's happened with the 49ers recently has been this quarterback debate, right? Going into the draft, they make the trade 6 weeks ahead of the draft. They trade all these assets, and it's clear they're trading for one position. And I think the initial reports, I mean, I know this. I remember Chris Sims, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, Mike Garofalo, all these national NFL reporters are all saying, oh, the 49ers are picking Mac Jones. No question. Like, absolutely no question. And I think the consistent thing we saw with all those sources, with all those people who would come out and put their reputation on the line. I mean, we saw it on Twitter for Kyle drafting Mac Jones. It's all these people who were connected to Kyle Shanahan or connected to Mike Shanahan. So I guess for me, I don't know if Kyle really wanted to take Trey Lance. And let me put it in this sense. I think he was okay with the decision, but if Kyle had the absolute last say in everything that was going on in this building, I think Mac Jones might be a 49er right now.
So I'm going to worm out of answering this question because obviously I don't know for sure, but I think there's some very interesting things here. You mentioned some national guys. The person that I really respect is Matt Mayoko, and he was convinced that Kyle was taking Mac Jones, and I think even after the fact, like he was kind of shocked that it didn't happen. So there's definitely smoke here. What I will say though is that again, and this kind of goes with the trades where we never really know or hear anything coming out of the 49ers building. They've really been tight-lipped since Balky left. And I think the same kind of goes with the draft too. I remember the year that they drafted Nick Bosa. We had no idea. There was so much debate and back and forth. And what was he, number 2 overall? I think he went.
Absolutely. Yeah, he went 2nd overall. And I think the guy, I mean, I remember Quentin Williams, right? He was the defensive tackle who ended up getting drafted by the Jets. But hey, the 49ers took him out to, what was it, IHOP, right? So, I mean, that's got to change everything for the 49ers. And I'm sure just that alone changed the perspective of the team entirely about these draft prospects.
yeah, totally, man. And what I'm saying though is, I think the one really positive thing about this group of guys that they have is that they're not interested in working with the media in leaking different things. I believe so. Maybe I am going to get to a consensus here. Maybe I do think that maybe he didn't fully want Mac Jones. I think what might have happened is he had an idea in his head at the front of the process, whenever that is, whenever they started looking at quarterbacks, and Mac Jones was one of his top guys. But after he took in all of the information from his scouts, the people doing the analytics, after he did the research and the homework himself, it became more and more obvious to him over time that Trey Lance was the guy. This was someone special. They got to talk to him. Everything you hear about the guy, he's amazing. He's super smart. He understands the offense. He can talk that lingo. And I think it became obvious to him, and he was convinced over time that he was the guy. That's who they wanted. So I guess no is the answer to the question. I think the answer is no, which is unfortunate for me. Again, I have a McCorkle jersey at home. Not sure what to do with that exactly. still, fingers crossed. I mean, he could get the Josh Rosen route and just kind of make his way around the league for a couple years and find his way back here.
Or, hey, you can wait until the Patriots come and play the 49ers and wear your McCorkle jersey. I mean, I'm sure he would love that, you know. And I think the thing that really set me off to go down this route and to think about this even more is that Monday press conference. I just can't get over that Monday before the draft when Kyle goes up there and says, I don't know who's going to be alive. And it looked like someone had just like ran over his puppy and told him that he was going to be expelled from school for the rest of the semester. I mean, it looks like he had gotten the worst news in his life. And all the reporting afterwards was that the 49ers made their decision on that day. So I think that's the only part of me where I'm like, did Kyle want Mac Jones? And did he throw a tissy fit like a toddler and then just throw a tantrum and be like, oh, you know, I'm just going to go out there and show everyone who's right. That just leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. But I think ultimately I kind of came to the position that you arrived at, which is he heavily considered Mac. He probably wanted Mac at some point in the process, but ultimately once he got all the information, and I think once they talked to the people, you know, Trey Lance really, he proved himself, and not just, like I said, to the front office, but to Kyle, I think especially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, just going back to his press conference, I don't want to talk about his press conference too much, but honestly, I feel like that's how he is every press conference, where it looks like one of his bets is run over.
I mean, today it was the, I'm better than you, wearing my 49ers hat, you know, just chilling like this, right? I mean, it's this constant crap with Kyle, where it's like, I don't know if he's being serious or this is just Kyle being Kyle. I think he's probably just getting very comfortable with the 49ers, and he's showing him his true self, which is quite an interesting person to learn more about. But I do want to move on to this next. I know you're a very negative person on Twitter. You make a lot of fun of the 49ers, and you've really done a great job of tapping into all the fan base's insecurities, I think, better than So I wanted to ask you this.
It's all in their best interest.
Of course.
I'm just hardening their souls so that when the losses and the bad moments do happen, they're so deflated by that point, by me just kind of rubbing their nose in it, that it doesn't even faze them anymore. The 49ers, they could go 0-17, or they could have a perfect season, go to the Super Bowl, and just get destroyed in that game, or you know, just repeat of the Chiefs, just blow the game with 10 minutes left, and the fans will be like, doesn't even bother me anymore. Thank you, EastBayChris. Thank you.
Yeah, what you're really doing,
all you've done for us.
You're doing all 49ers fans out there a favor with your service, and
I think I am. I think I'm deserved. You know, some gratitude, some thanks. You know, if you guys, you know, want to send me gifts, I'm open to it. You know,
we can get you a PO box going. We can set up a Venmo for people to donate to you, Chris. I think, you know, the people, if they want to show their love to Chris, you know, just besides the Twitter interaction, which you are great at, by the way, you know, but we can figure out some type of way to get people more involved and more interactive. But I do want to ask you this question. We're getting a little off track, but is there one 49er where, you know, you look up and down the team who maybe you've made a little bit fun of them, maybe you haven't, but just someone who's on the team now who you genuinely believe in and who you really are rooting for and want them to be successful?
You know, one of the favorite things that I've done, sort of coming out on Twitter and coming on YouTube, is that I get to be serious, and I'm being very serious on this show. And one person in particular that I'm very excited about, and I actually get to talk about, and I'm not going to joke for once in my life, it is actually Trey Sermon. I love what I've seen from that guy. I put out a tweet. I didn't even really say anything. I showed a tweet of him in college, and he gets the handoff, and he just plows over this quarterback and makes him look like a rag doll. It was so awesome. But just putting out that tweet, like, people just grilled me because I guess it was too much of a positive play for me to put out there, even though I didn't really even say anything. So anyways, I digress. Point being, I'm glad I get to come on a platform like this and talk about someone like that. Trey Sermon, what I see from that guy, he looks like Debo. he looks like Deebo Samuel. He looks for contact. He's a big guy. Honestly, the same build. I think they're the same height and weight.
It's pretty similar if it's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, if you just exchange their jerseys, I think you would have trouble differentiating the two. I know he's supposed to play running back. I wouldn't be shocked if he fits into that similar Deebo mold, where maybe they stretch him out to the side. Maybe he does some end arounds. We don't know yet. We'll see what happens. But I was very impressed, very excited what I saw from that guy. There's always a catch with these things, though, because he does play very similar style to Deebo. Watch out for the injuries. Again, we talked about it earlier. These guys fighting for every single yard possible. That's the same thing that Sermon tries to do on the majority of his runs. So something to watch out for and be careful there. But man, when he has the ball in his hand, he is dangerous. He is fun to watch. I'm super excited about him.
He's so dangerous with the ball in his hands. And I think just going back to what you were just saying, he falls forward a lot on his runs, which affords him so much contact. And I think, that's the thing where it does get a little scary with a guy like that, because you worry about all that contact over and over and over. But I think if you look at the 49ers running backs, they don't have a guy like that right now, a true big-bodied guy who's going to wear teams down. With the Raheem Mosterts of the world, he'll go off and he'll have a 2-yard gain, a negative 4-yard gain, and then a 20-yard burst, right? I think with Trey Sermon, it's going to be a little different. He's going to have 5-yard run after 6-yard run after 5-yard run, and he's just going to wear teams down eventually to where, like I said, the 49ers don't have a guy who can do that right now, to where you can really run out a game like you would have in the Super Bowl in 2020 with a guy like Trey Sermon. I mean, just looking at this past year's Super Bowl with Leonard Fournette, he was able to do that masterfully at the end of the game for the Buccaneers, to where he just wore down that defense on the Chiefs over and over, and he wasted time on the clock. But at the same time, he's not getting negative plays. He's getting those positive yards after positive yard after positive yard. And with Trey Sermon specifically, the thing I really like is he can be patient when he's behind the line of scrimmage, right? It's not quite Le'Veon Bell to where he's sitting back and waiting for everything, but you can see him going through all the decisions, looking at what he's trying to do. But once he makes that decision, man, that burst he has is absolutely unreal. And it's that same type of thing that Deebo has, to where once they put their foot in the ground, once they mentally, right, make that decision to the gap they're going to be going to, man, he just takes off. And he's fast, of course, Trey Sermon, but like you said, he's looking for contact too.
Yeah. So we'll see, how he does this year. And again, the catch with the majority of the players on the team, can he stay healthy? If he is, especially behind the philosophy of this team where they want to run the ball, I think he's, even in his rookie year, he's going to have a great season, especially when you consider who's in front of him on the depth chart. I think he's going to play a big part in this team this year.
Oh, yeah.
In the future.
Especially with the Jeff Wilson Jr. injury, I think that more than anything elevates him to a role where they're going to need him to play, especially early.
Yeah, he might be the number one guy right now.
I honestly, I think week 1 come around, Sermon is going to be getting the brunt of the carries, right? And then Grant has mentioned this before. I think Mostert will be the change of pace back to where he comes in, catches defenses off guard, right? And with Trey Sermon, because you're running that style over and over, he creates opportunities for other guys when they come in. So that's something I'm really excited about. But I do want to touch on this. I think 149er I'm looking at, and I really want to see this guy do well, and not just on the 49ers, but in his NFL careers, Jason Verrett. I love watching Jason Verrett. Seeing what he did to DeAndre Hopkins last season was incredible. But just Jason Verrett's story of a guy who goes from being a Pro Bowler to a guy who's sidelined so much to where he was almost out of the league at one point. And with the 49ers, the cool part about Jason Verrett to me is he's a guy who, if he doesn't get hurt this season, and he seems like as healthy as he's ever seen, that's all the reporting, he can get himself a really nice contract. And that's the kind of thing to where I'm like, go get your bag, Jason Verrett. Go get a 3-year deal. Even if it's not on this team next year, that's a guy I'm excited for just as a human being, seeing someone who was so successful early on and then fell from grace, but was able to pick themselves back up. And with the 49ers, I mean, they seem like they have so many of those guys, right, who are injured all the time, who don't get that play. But with Verrett, to me, he's like the true comeback story. He's that type of a comeback player of the year type of guy where next year, if he plays well enough, he could definitely be in consideration for that type of award.
Yeah, I think I told you about Verrett too. I put him on my Twitter last year. Again, it was the one rare time that I have anything positive to say. I was just his story, like you said, it's been amazing. I didn't understand the point of Jason Verrett. That's what I said when they re-signed him last year. Like, this guy has done nothing. Why are we keeping him around? And then he goes off, of course, and has just an amazing season. But just the what he had to overcome, it's been something special. So again, great player. Like Sermon, hopefully he can stay healthy. We'll wait and see. But yeah, he's a big part of the team this year. If they lose him, it's trouble for them.
Well, and I mean, yeah, I think that's the other thing too. It's if they lose Jason Verrett season, I mean, I don't want to say over, but it's about as close as it gets with an injury on this team. And like I said with Verrett, just the human element of that. A guy who literally in 2015 was a Pro Bowler and didn't play at all, and then comes back in 2019 a little, then in 2020, and is able to really show people that he's still one of the best in the league. I mean, to me, that's true human perseverance, and that's the kind of cool stuff to where I know we joke about the 49ers a lot, but you get all these cool stories about all these human beings, and that's just a really cool story to me.
Yeah.
So I think the next thing I do want to move on to is Trey Lance. Let's wrap this up with a bow with Trey Lance, because we've talked about him a lot, and we were talking about the decision between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. For you, do you think Trey Lance was the right decision?
Yeah, he was the right decision unless he's not. And TBD, right? It's so hard to say. I mean, right now, all the facts that we've been given, again, as I mentioned earlier about Trey, we've heard that he's smart. We've seen him at the press conferences now, and he's done some interviews here and there. He seems very well-spoken, like he's got a very level head about himself. So he seems to have a lot of the intangibles that you'd want in anyone within any organization, whether it be football or anything else. He seems motivated, driven. He's got all that down, and he's super athletic. He's got the right size. The only question mark seems to be about his accuracy right now, which is we've seen that in other quarterbacks in the league, like Josh Allen, for example. So it seems like it's correctable. And for him to have that motivation, the motivation part down, he can work on fixing that. So yeah, we can definitely look at this with rose-tinted glasses and say, yep, got the guy. Yeah. This is it. He's going to be the winner. And as fans, as people who follow this team, you definitely hope that's true, because if it's not, then you're going to be in a world of hurt for quite a while. Basically reliving the Tom Sula, Chip Kelly years for a while here, because there's no one else coming for a while. This is it.
And I think the thing with Trey, to me, that kind of sets him apart from all the other candidates we were looking at, just everything we were considering. First, like you're saying, it's that CEO mentality, that off the field, like, I'm the leader of this building and I'm the leader of this franchise. I don't doubt that with Trey. And while that can be a small thing, I think it's really important to have that kind of attitude. But then if you look at Trey, he has all the intangibles you look for in a starting quarterback in the modern NFL. I mean, he can make all the throws. He has the athletic ability to make plays on his own when there isn't anything there. And he has the strongest arm maybe in his entire class. So when I'm looking at Trey through that lens, I say to myself, okay, these are all things that we can't teach the Mac Jones of the world, right? The Justin Fields of the world with the processing, right? It's all this kind of stuff to where it put him over the edge of everyone else. And I think specifically with the 49ers, I don't think they could go with another quarterback who was a statue. I think the problem with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins is that you limit what you can do in your offense. And specifically with Shanahan, I mean, there's all kinds of concepts from Atlanta that we don't even see with this team anymore. They don't run any bootleg play action plays. They don't do anything outside of the pocket. And when I look at Trey Lance, I'm like, he's going to flourish outside the pocket. So that's where I get really excited as a fan. And I think the one thing you could say is, maybe some other fans would have had a preference for Justin Fields. But I think with Justin Fields versus Trey specifically, Trey just seemed like the more intellectually sound player. It seems like whenever they talked to Trey and just had him absorb information, right, and be a true quarterback at the level he was at, he was doing things that every other guy in his class wasn't even be asked to do, right? He would go under center. He would make plays or line calls calls at the line of scrimmage, right? He would do all these things that differentiate him from every other quarterback in his class. And then when you take in the physical traits, like I was just saying, man, that has to set you over the edge, especially when you consider there are other two options where Mac Jones, who's a guy who's the 49ers fans seem like they're very familiar with that stature type of quarterback, right? So I think if they'd gone with Justin Fields, this is another thing where you could have justified it. Absolutely. I think right now we'd both be talking very positively about it. But with Trey, I think maybe they had a flaw in trading up for him when they did trading up all they did, but I don't think they had a flaw in who they chose. It seems like to me they chose the right guy.
Yeah, in terms of that last point, I think if this was the guy that you wanted, you make that trade 100 out of 100 times. I don't have an issue with the capital that they gave up for him, especially for the position that he plays. And you can answer this question one other way as well. The 49ers could have decided to double down on Jimmy Garoppolo this season, let him go out, sign a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the backup. So if Jimmy does fall on his face, you can bring in Fitzpatrick and see how that goes. But quite honestly, I don't know how many people would be okay with that that decision. So if you compare it to something like that particular scenario, then yeah, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, whoever that they decided to take with this pick, that was the right decision. That was their guy. Let's see it play out. I would much rather have it this way than the alternative.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I kind of ultimately landed on with this sort of topic. It's like, yeah, they could have done things a little differently this way. They could have gone about it differently. But if Trey Lance is the guy, none of this matters. And we won't even be thinking about how many picks they gave up 3-4 years from now. Like, does anyone know how much the Chiefs traded up for Patrick Mahomes or how much the Bills traded up for Josh Allen, right? I mean, we're kind of it's funny. In the moment, we're so reactionary, right? We're like, oh, they gave up all this stuff, right? They did all these different types of things. But if Trey Lance is the best quarterback that was available to the 49ers, it doesn't matter how much they gave up, when they gave it up, or how the deal went down. It just matters that they got the right guy.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. So we'll see.
Yeah, this is kind of the last, I guess, serious topic I want to do for today. I think this is a kind of an impossible answer or a possible question to answer. But how long?
It's okay. I've warmed out of every question you've asked so far. I don't know if you've noticed. I haven't really given you a straightforward answer to anything.
Well, hey, if I was looking for yes or no answers, this would be like the SATs or something. But that's not what we're looking for here. If you had to guess, though, how much longer do you think Jimmy actually starts for this team?
So I know the reports have come out that he's very motivated in camp this year. He likes the competition, so that's all great and wonderful. But quite frankly, I mean, I made a whole article about this for SI. I don't buy a lot of the hype coming out of training camp. I go off of what I've seen. What have you done on the field? What have you done lately? And that's normally how I form my opinion about certain players. So in Jimmy's case, I haven't seen anything from him in a long time. He's either injured or he's by default handing the ball off. And that's a mixture of Kyle Shanahan not believing in him and also Jimmy just kind of not being an accurate guy, not being able to process information on the field. So there is sort of this mentality that sparks up in the fan base every once in a while that Jimmy is actually a great elite quarterback. He just needs to stay healthy and he can reach that point. I don't see it. I don't really know. I think he's shown little glimpses here and there. Again, I always bring up the Saints game because I think that was always his best game that he's had as a pro. But other than that, I think it's been very average performances across the board. So how long do I think Jimmy will start? He will start for as long as the 49ers are winning games. Whenever that stops, if they start to go on a extended losing streak, so let's say do I want to say two? Maybe three. I'll say 3 games. If they lose 3 games in a row, or they're off to sort of a wobbly start, like 2-4 or something like that, I wouldn't be shocked to see the transition happen.
And I think with this topic, I kind of landed on this. Whenever Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, to me, is the second that Trey Lance starts and the second that we never see Jimmy again. I think if it's not going to be a football decision, just whenever Jimmy gets hurt at any point, even if it's for a week, if there's just that little glimmer, that little just window peak, right, where Trey Lance can fit himself in and play on this team, I think he's going to succeed, quite frankly, even if he's not as ready as you'd like him to be, because let's be real, Chris, like Kyle doesn't love passing the ball. And with Trey Lance, he's not going to be asked to pass the ball a lot. I think that's the thing that 49ers fans need to realize is as much as we hated seeing Kyle throw the ball 8 times in the NFC Championship game, take the ball out of Jimmy Garoppolo's hands, I think it's not going to be the same where he takes the ball out of Trey's hands, but he's going to run the ball even more with Trey because of Trey's ability alone. So I think with Jimmy, the second he gets hurt, Trey can come in, and even if he's not completely polished and ready as a passer, he can be successful in a lot of different ways for the 49ers, and they can win games. I mean, they can just wear teams down running the ball, right? But I think if I'm just looking at Jimmy specifically with this, where I kind of landed is I don't think Jimmy makes it past the trade deadline or too far past that point. It's about week 8, week 9. That's where it was last season. I don't think they've officially announced when it will be. But to me, if Trey Lance isn't like I just don't see a scenario where they can't put Trey Lance in the game, even though they might have reservations, even if they have reservations for him as a passer, because like I said, they're going to be running the ball so much. They're not going to put him into a position to where he can lose the 49ers games, right? He's not going to be put in a position where it's all going to be his fault. Whereas with Jimmy, in the position he's constantly put in, being the throwing quarterback of this team, if he throws a bad pick, or if they lose 2 games in a row and there's one where it's really close and it seems like they should blow out a team, gosh, 49ers fans are going to get really loud really quick because they know that Trey Lance, I mean, I just don't know what Trey Lance can't do that Jimmy Garoppolo already is doing. I think that's kind of where I landed with this topic. I don't really know what Jimmy has to offer beyond being more experienced than Trey at this point in his career.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, Jason asked an interesting question, if you want to answer that one.
Yeah. Let's pull it up. So Jason asked, what if they're winning, but it's not because of Jimmy? Would Lance start then?
I
think it depends on how much they're winning, but let's say it's 8-2, 7-3, something like that. I would say they start Lance even at that point, because to me, how much is Jimmy even going to be doing for this offense? Because if it's not because of Jimmy, like Jason's saying in this comment right here, what's going to be keeping the 49ers from like leaving Trey on the bench? I mean, really, to me, the only scenario where Trey doesn't play at all year one is if the 49ers decide they need to put him on ice, right? They don't think he's at all ready. They don't trust him in the backfield, but I don't think that's the scenario.
I think this is a very complicated question, and there's a lot of different scenarios that have to play out for Jimmy to be kicked out of the starting position if they have a good record. I think that this is actually making me think of the year that Kaepernick took over Alex Smith's job, where it was sort of becoming apparent that Smith, he had his limitations, and Kaepernick was pretty exciting. He seemed to offer a lot of different dimensions to the offense that Alex couldn't. But it still took a pretty severe concussion for Alex to get knocked out of that starting position. So obviously, I mean, totally different team, different coaching staff. So the mentality is different. But I don't know, man. If they're winning games, I'm going to go the opposite way of you. I think they're going to continue starting him as long as the team's doing well.
Okay, and I think that's fair. But let me ask you this way, and I think this is more of what Jason's asking. So if they're 8-2, and Jimmy Garoppolo's throwing a pick or two per game, right? The team is running the ball like 60% of the time, 55% of the time, and Jimmy isn't the reason they're successful. Do you think there's still that chance that Trey comes in and is the starter just at any point, just mid-season at all?
Oh, God. I don't want to be like in Jimmy's corner right now and like, yeah, man, keep him in there. He's winning you games. And that's always the thing with Jimmy. Oh, look how many games he's won. Look. But, if you actually watch the film and you watch what Jimmy's doing, you realize like he's nothing special. He's not the reason they're winning these games. So I don't know. I think the right decision would be in that scenario to put in Trey, see what he can do, see if he can elevate your team to the next level. Will that actually happen? I have no idea. Again, this is all.
The other thing with this too, especially with Jimmy, is that I think for fans, they're not going to be they're going to be clamoring for Trey, even if the team has won a lot of games, because I don't think this is their Super Bowl year. And because of that, there's no reason that they should continue to start Jimmy, right? I think that's kind of where I get to with this. It's that if you don't think you can win the Super Bowl, what's the point of keeping Jimmy in there, even if you're winning a lot of games?
Well, Bet, you go on Twitter right now and people are already clamoring for Trey Lance to start. They're already sick of Jimmy. So the thing that's going against Garoppolo this season, any little mistake that he makes, there's going to be a magnifying glass under everything, and people are going to rip him apart. I guess the good thing for Jimmy is that he's not on social media, so it's not going to really faze him too much. But
hey, Trey Lance needs to get off social media in that case, because everything's great now. But I mean, enjoy it while it lasts. But hey, just wait until you get into the game, because like Jimmy can tell you, you will get criticized heavily. And Jason followed up his response. He just said basically that if the 49ers are winning and Trey is throwing 2 picks a game, or Jimmy is throwing 2 picks a game, he's missing open receivers. I think in that kind of instance, I could see Trey starting, just because it would almost be a scenario of the 49ers are winning in spite of Jimmy, right? I think if that's what we're talking about, if that's what Jason's talking about, I could definitely see the scenario where they just do the Yankee swap and are like, you know what, Jimmy, the Broncos need a starting quarterback. They'll give us a 4th round pick. Get out of town now.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's very easy to say this as well, where you say, well, Jimmy's kind of struggling, put in Trey Lance. In our minds, we're automatically like, I think we have a little bit of a bias where we go, this guy is special. He's going to come in. He's going to elevate this offense. No brainer. Why are we even waiting? But what if he comes in and he sucks? Like that's the other side of this that the coaches have to think about. They have to worry about what is that going to do to a guy's confidence if the team is rolling, they're doing well, and then all of a sudden Lance makes that change. He's the starting quarterback, and they start losing a bunch of games. So what happens to him and his future and in the locker room? And it would just be a mess.
And I'm glad you brought that up, and I don't think this is a 1-to-1 comparison. Hey, thanks, Hassan. By the way, I'll mention this now. These are new glasses for anyone who's been watching my channel regularly. I've not been wearing any glasses at all. That's because I broke mine 2 weeks ago. So I've been flying blind. Thank you. I appreciate that, Hassan. I do feel like I look smarter with these on. Little Clark Kent type of vibe. But I think I got a little off track there. Sorry. But I think with Jimmy and with Trey, like, if it looks really bad for Jimmy, I just think it becomes harder and harder to keep him in there. Like I think the only scenario where Jimmy finishes out the season and is the starting quarterback going into the playoffs if Jimmy is even better than he was in 2019. And even that wasn't that good. I mean, he would have to be, excellent to me, unless Trey Lance is just so far beyond ready. It's not even a question for this year. That I don't think that's the scenario. But that's the one, I guess, where they just sit Trey for the entire year and we did the Mahomes experience.
We'll
Sorry.
see. Yeah, I think the only catch is the only warning that I would give to fans is level set your expectations for Lance when he comes in. If you put him too high and he's just very average, then you're gonna set yourself up for disappointment.
And Chris,
but we'll see. It could be amazing.
You just reminded me of this, and I want to end this topic on this because we've been talking about it for a little bit. But with Trey, we don't want to put him in a situation like Tua Tagovailoa was in with the Dolphins, right? Where the team around him is successful and they're doing so well, but then the rookie is the one who's impeding the progress of the team, right? I don't think the 49ers are in that type of situation because they're not a team that's on the rise, right? People have assumed the 49ers have arrived. So if anything, it would even be a worse situation because he would take in a team that's at such a high level and bringing them down. I think that would be the really scary scenario if you're a 49ers fan because you don't want to knock Trey's confidence. You don't want him to feel like he isn't that franchise guy. I think that's the one thing to where I would be really, really careful with him. I would be worried about that, but I don't worry about that with Trey right now, but as we get closer to the season, as we see things unfold, that's one thing to where I'm like, if we have to sit him, just sit him, put in Josh Rosen, put in Nate Sudfeld if Jimmy isn't playing or if he's hurt or whatever. I mean, do what you have to do to protect the rookie at all costs. I think that's the most important
thing.
Oh,
God, not Sudfeld. Why Sudfeld? Bring it, please. At least try Rosen. I think I heard today he's only 23 still, 23 or 24. He's still such a young guy. So
hey, we're not giving Josh Johnson any love. I know the team cut him, but hey, come on, he could be signed back.
He could come back. Yeah, all those quarterbacks in the league that really hit when they were 37, it could happen.
Oh yeah, that's just where you're peaking as an NFL quarterback, like Tom Brady's telling people. Let me finish up the serious topics on this kind of, and we can make this really quick for this part. What kind of expectations do you have for the team this year, and do you believe in the long-term success of the 49ers as they're currently constructed?
Well, I hate to go back to the injury discussion, but that's exactly how you answer this question. Yes, they have a bunch of players with potential. They look great when you do have them on the field. You can see if you have them all there together, it's going to be a great result. But you never do have them all together. There's always injuries. And this is why I was so bothered by Kyle's reaction today at the press conference, again, because this team is so tied to whether they can stay healthy or not. I know that's what every team is tied to for the most part. But it's such an ongoing issue with this team that if you don't acknowledge it and you don't answer that question, then you can't believe in this team this year, next year, the year after that. So,
and the thing with that, I just want to mention this. I was just thinking about that as you were saying that. Besides Kyle Juszczyk and Fred Warner, are there any top 10 players on the 49ers who haven't experienced some type of injury? I don't think so. I think every single one of those other guys who's at the top of your team, your Ayuks, your Debos, your Kittles, I mean, Nick Bosa, Jason Verrett, right? I mean, Raheem Mostert, even Trent Williams, Alex Mack. Every single guy I just mentioned has had some type of injury, some type of thing that has set them back because they physically can't keep up with the game, right?
Yeah. Before that, Trent Taylor. Who other 49er greats do we miss on this list? You're right. Yeah, all these players, all the ones that they need to rely on, that need to be starting for them, they're all dealing with something, and so it's hard to commit to being, saying that this is a playoff team and saying that they'll be there by the end of the year because you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And what we've seen with the Lynch-Shanahan era is that they deal with injuries every year, and they're substantial injuries. So,
yeah,
I guess no is the answer to your question. I want to. I love them on paper.
Yeah, no, and that's where I want to go with this, Chris. I'll disagree with you in this instance. I think at the most important position, with Trey Lance, he's not a guy who's been injured. He plays the play style to where he can actually protect himself if you watch him in the run game. I think the only thing he really has to watch out for is the way he ran over defenders in college. He can't quite do that at the NFL, but I'm sure that's something he already knows. So to me, when I'm tying the success to Kyle Shanahan and Trey Lance and this defense that this team has that's really deep, even though you have guys who have injury problems, right? You look at all the weapons, you look at the offensive line. To me, this is a team in the next 2 to 3 years that if they're not in the Super Bowl competing for one, they should be just outside of the Super Bowl, right? This should be a team that we're looking at 3 seasons from now and is a perennial contender. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a 49ers fan. I think genuinely they have one of the best rosters in the NFL, even if they get 2-3 of their best 10 guys hurt. I mean, you even saw it in the 2019 season. They were able to be successful in spite of all the injuries they were having still. I mean, George Kittle missed part of the season. Quan Alexander, right? D Ford. There were all these kinds of guys. So that we know the 49ers can sustain injuries. It's just whether or not those injuries happen at key positions, right? If they can keep their offensive line coherent, if they can keep all those guys together and they can keep Trey Lance standing upright, I don't see any reason why this team shouldn't be successful in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I'll amend my answer. I said no before. I was kind of a little tongue in cheek there. I think I do believe in them, but I have question marks. And again, I think it all revolves around the injury concerns. If they can address those, then they'll be good. But that's always the catch with all the 49ers teams. So hopefully it's different this year, but who knows?
And that's the thing. We can't really predict the injury thing. And I think that's the thing with this team is you try and predict all this stuff, right? You try and have all these forecasts, these ideas, but there's going to be something unexpected that's happening. And when I take all that into consideration, I feel like the 49ers are set up to sustain those type of injuries and those type of setbacks that a team could potentially have. I didn't want to spend too much time on this though, because I have 2 questions I want to end with, Chris. First question I want to ask you. What would you have done if the 49ers had won Super Bowl?
Yeah. Well, first off, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. I would be irrelevant. During the Super Bowl, I think I probably had about 150 so followers at max. And the reason for that is because no one was buying into the whole cynical guy routine that I had going on Twitter. Because they were having an amazing season. So why would you care to follow a negative, pessimistic 49er fan? But they lost. They lost that game, and it brought me to the forefront of 49ers Twitter. I gained a bunch of followers, and now I'm writing for SI and I have my own YouTube channel. So if they had won, I would just be, kind of alone. I would have no 49ers fans as friends, the friends that I've made over the past year or two. Just a relatively lonely man, just kind of yelling to myself into space.
Well, I was going to say, it might just be you and Grant yelling back at each other on Twitter or whatever form of social media. I think that's the other thing too when we talk about this. I mean, Grant himself has talked about how he's blown up because when the 49ers lost the Super Bowl, he started going into YouTube, and there were all these 49ers fans who wanted content, right, after their team had lost the Super Bowl. So, I mean, obviously, for a guy like Grant, who's more critical of the team than your normal everyday writer, he's going to be more successful because of that. And I think the one thing I don't understand with some fans is there's media who's there to be critical, and there's media who's there to fluff them up and feel great, and you're Matt Maiokas of the world who are going to throw these softball questions to Jed York and Kyle Shanahan. And then there's the Grants of the world. You can't have one without the other. And I think people get too in the weeds with that kind of stuff sometimes. They blame the person for having that sort of opinion when that's just consistently who they are, like with you and like with Grant, right?
Yeah. And again, I don't know if I would have been able to kind of get to this point had they won that game. Honestly, if they had won the game, I've kind of, maybe this is when you just get older, you kind of detach from it a little bit more. I've speculated when you get a mortgage and you have kids and you just have like 100 million other worries in your life outside of whether a football team has won a game or not. I don't know if it would have really changed my life very much. The 49ers won the Super Bowl. I mean, I would have like a brief moment where I would have been like proud of the guys on the team. You know, I like Kittle. He's a likable guy.
You might have
Mostert,
got a T-shirt. Yeah.
Mostert, he had a good story up to that point, right? He bounced around the league. He's a feel-good story. So I would have felt good for them for a little bit, but then I would have woke up in the morning and I would have gone downstairs, made my breakfast, do my chores, and it would just been back to EastBayChris life again. So it would have been a very temporary feeling of happiness overall.
And then you know what? I'll end on this, Chris. I need to know for sure. Are you Grant's burner?
Yes, that's been speculated. I have actually come out and announced 2 years running. I re-up on my Grant burner subscription.
Oh, it's a yearly lease, right?
If you go onto my Twitter, you can find it. I've actually announced, like on the first of the year, I go on and I re-up my subscription as Grant's burner account. I know that I've come out and I've shown my face. It's been speculated that I'm just a paid actor by Grant Cohn. I'd like to acknowledge that is true. Actually, he does still run that Twitter account, EastBayChris. So yes, I am Grant's burner. I'm hoping to eventually just take over his account, though, take over his job. I'll go talk to the guys at SI. Maybe they can do like a senior manager, like a middleman type role where Grant has to report into me. I think that's the ultimate goal. And then I can give Grant directions and tell him how he should be doing his job. So yeah, again, the ultimate goal, make the burner into the main and then make Grant the burner account.
You know what? That is the way to go about business, Chris. I think for you, you're trying to get that blue check mark before Grant, which I don't understand why he hasn't gotten it yet. It's kind of mystifying to me. But I mean, if you got that blue check before Grant did, man, I think that would be an all-time EastBayChris moment.
Oh man, and I am getting all my ducks in a row. You saw my account. I've changed my name. I put an actual picture of myself on there. When you do the verification process, it asks for you to upload some stuff. So I had to like send in my driver's license. I had to send them articles that I've written for SI. So I'm sure Grant did the same thing though. So we'll see if it works. Hopefully I get a guy who's just sort of like ready to go on his lunch break and he just like clicks accept. Like he doesn't really look at my application.
Yeah, he's like, whatever.
He just wants to leave early for the day or something. So we'll see if it happens. I just sent it over today. So fingers crossed on that.
And I think that would be amazing. Like you getting verified before all these 49. I mean, it feels like these 49ers fans, like all of us, we've created this own mini world for ourselves, right? And you, Grant, I mean, Jason Aponte, all these people are like the leaders of the clubhouse. So for you to get that kind of recognition would just be incredible. And hey, I will say this: if you're going to take over one of Grant's socials, go for the YouTube over the Twitter. You can monetize that. So, that's where you really can make your money.
Excellent point. Well, I was just planning on taking all of it over, the Discord, the Twitch, the AOL Instant Messenger, whatever the hell he's on right now. Yeah, it's all mine, Grant. I'm coming for you, man.
Yeah. I'm going to make this into a Twitter clip. Listen now, Grant. EastBayChris is coming for everything.
I've had enough of you just taking credit for all of my amazing work that I put on Twitter, all my Photoshops, my insight, the deep analytics that I put out there. It ends today, buddy. Twitter verification is coming. And once that day comes, you're through. No more Grant Cohn, no more Cohn phone. It's the EastBayChris phone.
Yeah, and you know what? I think Tuesdays from now on, we'll have to have EastBayChris and Lil Cohn doing the Cohn Zone, right? I mean, that's just how things would have to go.
Yeah, that's a good idea. EastBayChris Mondays with Vish. Okay,
so Bay Area Baller. I don't know about AIM. I think I've heard the name before, but I don't know.
AIM was basically texting before texting was a big thing.
Okay. No, I was gonna.
You could do it on your computer.
I was gonna throw out there MySpace, but I think Grant is pretty on top of his socials in terms of his P's and Q's. But I think that's probably where I'm gonna end this stream for today. This was a lot of fun, Chris. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on my channel. For everyone who's watching on Twitter, make sure you go over to YouTube and check out my channel on YouTube as well, because in the link for this video, for this live stream, I have all of EastBayChris's socials. I have mine as well, and just make sure you go and check out all that stuff. And man, EastBayChris, thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. Like I said earlier, you've been on a lot of live streams recently, and man, we had so much fun talking Game of Thrones the other week. I'm glad we could do something a little more serious where you get to show a little bit more of your 49ers expertise.
Yeah, thanks, man. I had a lot of fun. I think we learned a lot today, and we're better men because of it. So thank you.
Absolutely. And just for everyone, again, go check out EastBayChris on YouTube. I mean, you've been doing some really excellent work on there. You even had this own version of your show where you had people call in. I mean, this is as original content as original.
Thank you.
So
thank you for.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone do anything like that ever. But
I'm really at the forefront of this whole thing. So thank you, Ben, for giving me the credit that I deserve. Again.
No, I just want to let everybody know I did a Brandon Ayuk film watch yesterday. You can go check that out on my YouTube channel or just Ben Meyerson. And then Thursday, Friday, you can expect some pretty good live streams. I already let everybody know on Twitter. Jason Aponte is going to be on my channel tomorrow. But then on Friday, I will have Vish and Blake from Vish and Blake Sports on my channel. So I'm really excited for all the content I'm going to be bringing everyone's way. Again, make sure you go and check out my YouTube if you haven't already, if you're viewing it on Twitter. And make sure you go check out EastBayChris and all of his stuff that he's been putting out. Thank you, Chris. And hey, have a great week, everyone. Enjoy your 49ers offseason now that there won't be any more minicamp. So enjoy that.
Nope. Yeah, no more injuries. The injuries are done. Calling it now.
Hey, wait, real quick. Amin the Dream is here. Shout out Amin the Dream. I love this.
Better late than never, buddy.
You just made the end of the stream. I mean, we're about to end it here. But thanks to everybody. Go check out Amin the Dream if you haven't already. That's my guy. If Vish is Grant's guy, right? I need my own guy. So Amin is my guy. I'm going to be taking all the credit for all of his success in the future. So watch out for that. But again, thank you, everybody, and have a great night.